When Israel bombed Qatar, it basically proved one main thing. The United States can't even protect you from Israel's recklessness. With that said, they said, holy shit, we buy a lot of weapons from the United States. We have a base here, and they still couldn't protect us. We need to have assurances that this won't happen to us again and get security from other what? Powerful nuclear-armed nations. Our hegemony in the Gulf states is slowly waning off. Saudi Arabia and Qatar, seeing that the United States can't control Israel, now they're getting security from Pakistan. So as you guys know, last week, Israel bombed Qatar, okay? And when they bombed Qatar, they bombed them to eliminate members of Hamas. As you guys know, the leadership of Hamas lives in Doha, Qatar. And the reason why they live there is because Qatar is kind of like a middleman that facilitates agreements with the Israelis and Hamas and also, the United States, the West in general, right? It's a middle ground for all these different groups to be able to exercise some diplomacy. And these high-ranking officials in Hamas have been there for a very long time, for decades, since like the early 2000s, 2010s, etc. And the two main guys, Khaled Mashal and the other guy, who run Hamas, these guys right here, let me put a face to the name. So this is one of the main guys, right? And Israel's been trying to kill this guy for a very long time. I told you guys the story of how they tried to assassinate him in Jordan, and they failed back in 1997, okay? So they've been trying to get this dude for a minute and his counterpart. So these guys live in Qatar right now. And for those of you that don't know, Qatar, whatever you want to call it, very wealthy Gulf state. It's like Dubai, right? Have a lot of money, a lot of oil, etc. Ally of the United States. We have our biggest military base there, okay? So what ended up happening was the Israelis did a precise airstrike on a building that they thought members of Hamas were going to be at to negotiate or make a response to Trump's 24-hour warning that if they didn't make a deal, there was something bad was going to happen. So the Israelis got intel that these high-ranking Hamas members were going to go ahead and meet up to talk about this deal, and what they did was they planned an airstrike. Now, why is this a problem? Because they violated Qatar's sovereignty and their airspace to go in and attack them and bomb them in Doha. Now, this is obviously a huge slap in the face, right, to not just Qatar, but the entire Arab world and the Gulf states, okay? Now, the reason why this is so insulting, okay, is because for years, decades now at this point, all of these Arab countries that have played peace with Israel have been criticized. Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, etc. Though some of them might not recognize them, treaties like the Abraham Accords or the Camp David Accords or whatever, the base, right, the people that live in these Arab countries dislike the fact that people go ahead and exercise diplomacy with Israel or recognize Israel and or work with Israel. Okay? Because they look at it like, how are you going to work with a state that's actively oppressing Palestinian Muslims and stealing their land and occupying them illegally? That's how they look at it, right? So these Gulf states, right, these monarchs get shit on all the time and criticized all the time by their constituents for this. Now, the reason why they kind of sell out is because they get protection from the United States. As you guys know, we run cover for the Israelis in the Middle East. And everyone that plays nice with the Israelis, we basically give them aid or we let them do business. In the West, we don't sanction them. And the ones that don't, we sanction them and try to destroy them. Very simple. So it's either work with us or get destroyed by us. That's what it really comes down to. Now, these Gulf states basically say, you know what? We'll work with the West. We'll work with the Israelis. Though some of us might not recognize Israel overtly, like Qatar, for example, they will still exercise some level of diplomacy with them. Same with Saudi Arabia. So when Israel bombed Qatar, it basically proved one main thing. The United States can't even protect you from Israel's recklessness, okay? And with that said, they said, holy shit, we buy a lot of weapons from the United States. We have a base here, and they still couldn't protect us. We need to have assurances that this won't happen to us again and get security from other what? Powerful nuclear-armed nations, okay? The only nuclear-armed Muslim majority country in the world is Pakistan, okay? So what Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and some of these other Gulf states have basically done is they have negotiated a deal, right, with Pakistan for a strategic defense agreement, okay? And they did not notify the U.S. Now, for a very long time, guys, we were on the hook for defending Saudi Arabia because of something called the petrodollar, okay? Back in the 1970s, your boy Richard Nixon struck a deal with the Saudis saying, look, we will protect you guys. We will give you arms. We'll protect you. We'll maintain your security. The only thing we need you guys to do is we need you to do all of your oil transactions in dollars, okay? And obviously this is important because if everyone is using the US dollar to purchase oil, well, that's going to create a demand for the US dollar, right? Now, we're already the reserve currency, but for them to also do oil transactions, it only props up the dollar more. And this is why we get to print so much money and not deal with the, severe consequence of inflation. Yes, we have dealt with inflation to a degree, but it would be way worse if we were not the reserve currency and if we didn't have the petrodollar, okay? So this is the deal that we struck with Saudi Arabia back in the 1970s, okay? Now, we recently lost this deal last year. A lot of people don't know this, but like Saudi Arabia has been slowly stopping using the US dollar as their main currency when they do these oil deals. It happened last year, and it happened quietly. It happened last June, I remember. And no one reported on it. Nobody reported on it. But this goes to show that for years now at this point, Saudi Arabia has been slowly trying to back out of, right, or, tiptoe backwards from American security. And, they flow with bricks, backing out the petrodollar to a degree, a little bit here, a little bit there, working with Russia here, working with China here, doing something here, doing something there. Because the Saudis, right, are opportunists. I'm just going to call it what it is. They're opportunists. What do I mean by this? Publicly, they'll say, oh, we will not recognize an Israeli state until they give the Palestinians land. But what they won't tell you is that prior to October 7th, they were flirting with joining the Abraham Accords. Okay? Now, what are the Abraham Accords? The Abraham Accords, guys, are basically it's a peace deal that your boy Donald Trump negotiated back in like 2020, where it would get Arab nations or Muslim majority countries in the Middle East to recognize Israel. A lot of these countries don't recognize Israel, guys, as a state for obviously what they did to the Palestinians. And Saudi Arabia was one of the last holdout countries. Now, Saudi Arabia was flirting with potentially being recognizing Israel and coming into the Abraham Accords. That is the big reason why October 7th happened. Why? Because due to Saudi Arabia's geographic location and the fact that they have so many different holy lands in their country, they are looked at as almost like the de facto leader of the Muslim world. Medina, Mecca, etc. People go there to do their Hajj, one of the 5 pillars of Islam, to go your pilgrimage and pray at the Kaaba. For those of you that are wondering, that's the black cube in Mecca. So Saudi Arabia enjoys a certain degree of respect because of what they have there, right? So if Saudi Arabia joined the Abraham Accords, this would have been a problem because they would join the Abraham Accords without solving the Palestinian question, okay? And that would effectively leave the Palestinians SOL because that was one of their main leverage points. Saudi Arabia is not going to recognize you, and therefore a lot of the Muslim world won't recognize you unless you give us a state, okay? Now, they won't admit that, but that's what it is. And the Saudis have been doing this for a while. This is actually why they killed Khashoggi, by the way. You guys remember Khashoggi? Sliced his ass up in the embassy in Turkey? They killed him because he was talking about this type of shit. He was being very critical of the government, how they play both sides, how they do slimy shit, etc. Now, why am I telling you all this? I'm telling you guys all this to let you guys know that our hegemony in the Gulf states is slowly waning off. And the Israelis being able to bomb the Qataris the way that they did with, no U.S. oversight or denial, because again, they gave 2 different stories. The Israelis said that they notified the United States. Trump played dumb and said, well, we didn't know. Or they told us right before. Well, which one is it? Right? And then we all know that Israel, they do reckless shit all the time. But we don't know if the U.S. actually did give them the go-ahead or not. The Israelis made it sound like we did. Right? But Trump is playing dumb. That's why Marco Rubio is in Israel right now as we speak. He might have come back by now. But he was in Israel like all week to deal with 2 things. Publicly, how Qatar is going to respond to them and the Gulf states, because they are going to respond to Israel for them bombing them. And then number 2, because they're going to go ahead and plan how they're going to attack Iran. Because make no mistake about it, there is going to be a regime change move by the Israelis to get rid of Iran. And this has been in the making for decades. I showed you guys a clean break memo, how they were hell-bent on getting rid of Saddam Hussein. Now, their next obsession is Iran, the last stronghold that's keeping them from absolute hegemony in the Middle East. But, Saudi Arabia and Qatar, seeing that the United States can't control Israel, now they're getting security from Pakistan. and also working with these other nuclear powers because Pakistan is the only nuclear-armed Muslim country in the world. Okay? That is why. And this is also why, if you guys notice, what did Netanyahu do yesterday? Let me show you what this nigga Netanyahu did yesterday. Bro, it is so crazy once you understand like geopolitics and global situations, why they do the shit that they do. Look at this. Look at what Netanyahu did yesterday. And this was not by coincidence, by the way. This nigga thinks we're stupid. Let me find it for you. Where the hell did he put it? Yeah, so you can see him here with Marco Rubio on the 15th. And that's exactly why Marco Rubio went over there to try to put out the fire between Qatar and Israel. Look at them. They're kissing the wall, bro.
Marco Rubio and his wife, Janet. I think his visit here is a testament to the durability, the strength of the Israeli-American alliance. It's as strong and as durable as the stones of the Western Wall that we just touched under President Trump.
And then look, he goes, the Hamas chiefs living in Qatar don't care about the people in Gaza. They blocked all ceasefire attempts in order to blah, 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 right? He's trying to justify him bombing the out of them. All right, well, he wished a birthday, guys. He wished a birthday for the leader of India. And why did he do that? Because India, as you guys know, has had a long-standing tension with Pakistan. So India's going to align themselves with Israel, and obviously because India's an ally of ours as well, even though we did some stupid shit with the tariffs. And the Saudis are going to align themselves with Pakistan, and the Muslim world's going to align themselves with Pakistan because Pakistan is a Muslim majority country, right? There's a good Muslim population in India too, but I don't think they're the majority, or they're not, at least not the overt majority. So what's going on here? It's political posturing, guys. It's political posturing. The Gulf states can no longer trust the United States to protect them because they look at it like, yo, we already sold out to you guys and look bad in front of our constituents. We need to go ahead and get a security guarantee from another nuclear armed power because Israel is nuclearly armed, okay? That's also very important for you guys. Israel has nuclear weapons, despite the fact that they don't acknowledge this for obvious reasons, because they stole them from us, by the way. They stole them from us. They don't acknowledge it because of that. So this is why these guys over in the Gulf need to protect themselves from Israel, and that's why they went ahead and got a security assurances from Pakistan, another Muslim majority country, the only Muslim majority country that has a nuclear bomb like Israel does. Because when you have a nuclear bomb, you are able to deter other nuclear-armed countries. Anyway, guys, give me ones in the chat if that all makes sense. I went in detail there, but I hope you guys understand why Saudi Arabia had to go ahead and get these security assurances alongside Qatar, and why with Pakistan, Israel's position in the Middle East, and why they did all this. Give me ones if that all makes sense.